Subject-verb agreement is a piece of grammar that many of you were taught in elementary school, but it's something you don't practice on a daily basis. So we're going to take some time to really learn subject-verb agreement because this is a big error that I see when looking over papers or looking over your writing. And all subject-verb agreement means is that the subject and the verb match in number. If you have one subject, your verb must reflect that. If you have two or more subjects, your verb must reflect that as well. So singular subjects, which means one, has a singular verb form, whereas a plural subject will have a plural verb form. And these come in three different forms. You have first person, second person, and third person. So first person is I or we, second person be you, and then third person is he, she, it, or they. So verbs that appear with these pronouns must match in number. And agreement is most often a problem with third person nouns or pronouns. And here are some rules that you can follow or look back on whenever you're writing to make sure that you have subject-verb agreement. The first rule, an S ending on a verb determines the agreement. So for a singular verb, you put S on it. For example, the dog barks. And then for a plural form, the dogs bark, you would have no S on the verb. And you can be asked, how do you make a word plural? And then you're tempted to answer, well, you just add an S to it. Obviously, if you want two dogs, you add an S to the word dog. And while adding an S works for most nouns, it doesn't work for verbs, just like I said. So if you add an S to a verb, that means it goes with a singular noun. And one way to remember that is S starts the word singular. So if you remember, if my verb has an S on the end of it, it goes with a singular noun. So your first practice, all you have to do is you have to decide which verb fits in the sentence. And all you will need to do is write the verb. You do not have to write the sentence. When you're finished, you have some more notes to take and another practice to do. The second rule for subject-verb agreement is that words that come between the subject and the verb do not change subject-verb agreement. This is where people typically err when it comes to subject-verb agreement. The verb must always agree with the subject no matter where the subject is in the sentence. And you have to pay particular attention to prepositional phrases. We've talked about these, not in great detail, but remember prepositional phrases are anything that have to do with a house. You can go to the house, you can go through the house, you can go by the house, you can go along the house, on the house. So I've given you several examples. So the first example, you'll see the basket of apples falls on the floor. Of apples and on the floor has been crossed out because they are prepositional phrases. Many of you probably would be tempted to say the basket of apples fall on the floor because apples is plural. You would want to put falls, but in all actuality, apples is not the subject of the sentence. Basket is. So you have to make sure your subject, basket, agrees with your verb, which is falls. And the easiest thing to do when you're reading a sentence to decide, do I have correct subject-verb agreement, is you just find the subject and find the verb of the sentence and see if they match. And if you'll take a look at the second and third examples, over the river and through the woods to grandmother's house we go, and the cat, along with the kittens, sleeps by the fireplace in the den. All the prepositional phrases have been marked out, and all we are left with is the subject and the verb. Okay, for this practice, you do the same as the first. You read each sentence, and then you just write the correct verb. Be sure that you pay particular attention to what the subject of the sentence is. If it is a singular subject, your verb needs an S. If your subject is plural, your verb will not have an S.